I would like to welcome you all for this virtual roundtable discussion on topic the future of mobility. And this session is co-organized by the European Patent Office and the European Business Technology Center in association with India SME Forum. The objective of this roundtable discussion is to present the latest updates by the EPU experts along with the Indian mobility industry experts on innovations related to battery and additive manufacturing and to receive the further feedback from our Indian stakeholders. So without any further delay, I would like to pass floor to the representative of the India SME Forum, Ms. Bhavya Sharma, to share her welcoming remarks. Bhavya, over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Ankita. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome to all the respected dignitaries and my dear audience who are present here for the webinar. Uh, to give you a brief about India SME Forum, we are India's largest non-for-profit organization for the small and medium enterprises. And today, we are 86,000 plus members strong, of which 7,000 are women entrepreneurs with 19 chapters across India. We contribute to the entrepreneurial ecosystem as a gazetted member of India's National Board of MSME. And ISF actually takes initiatives to support the entrepreneurs with knowledge sharing, recognition, and creation of ecosystem to the business to thrive and to facilitate them for various schemes as well as various initiatives. So we as an organization have been supporting the creation of IP and innovative culture. We have two IPFC centers, one in Delhi and the other one is in Mumbai, which are primarily working to support people in IP, whether it is for trademarks or for patents. We are also offering the facilitation in accessing the government schemes and funds besides the registration of trademarks and patents. So under the Ministry of MSME IPR scheme, they are providing a scheme wherein the people can actually get reimbursement for the trademarks and patents. So for each trademark, they can provide a reimbursement of up to 10,000 rupees. For each domestic patent, they are offering a amount of up to 1 lakh rupees, and for each international patent, they are offering a reimbursement of up to 5 lakh. And for the geographical indication, they can provide a reimbursement of up to 2 lakh. So we also have ongoing partnership with the European Business and Technology Center, where we are constantly working towards the possibility of bringing the entrepreneurs of India and Europe together, thereby to create an entrepreneurial culture and innovative culture here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bhavya, for your welcoming remarks. So now I would like to pass floor to Jed to introduce EPU panelists. Jed, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Ankita. Thank you very much, Ms. Sharma. It's a very interesting introduction to the Indian SME Forum there. And as the European Patent Office, we're very, very interested in supporting you with our partners, EBTC in New Delhi, to, as you say, to bring entrepreneurs and companies together from India and Europe to collaborate in future, and also to support the intellectual property and patenting needs then of Indian as well as European investors in that sense. My name is Jed Owens. I'm the country coordinator for India in the International Cooperation section of the European Patent Office. We have a very, very distinguished panel here from the EPO to support us today. We have Mr. Francesco Zacca, who is the Principal Director for Operations in the area of mobility and mechatronics, which is our themes today. And he is basically responsible for effectively around 1/3 of the 4,500 patent examiners that are active at the European Patent Office. We also have, in this area of mobility and mechatronics, we have Mr. Ricardo Oltra Garcia, who will be helping moderate today. We have Gerrit Huber, Andras Saip as well, and Mikhail Papatheofrastou, who are all real experts in the mobility area with much experience behind them in various technical areas in mobility and mechatronics. And each one of those will introduce themselves in a little bit more detail as we go through the session today and go through the various topics. So thank you very, very much for that. I'll pass back very quickly before we give an introduction to the EPO by Mr. Francesco Zacca. I'll pass very quickly back to Ankita to be able to introduce the Indian panelists. But thank you to the India SME Forum and to all EBTC and all the other bodies for making this happen today.
Thank you, Jed. And from India side, we're having Mr. Neeraj Panchal from John Deere, and then Akilur Rahman, he is a CTO of Hitachi ABB Power Grid. And then we'll be having the Aditya Saxena, he is from Schindler's IP Council, and then Mr. Faiz Wahid. So I would like to pass floor to Mr. Akilur Rahman. So speak a few words, and then over to Faiz. So Mr. Rahman.
Introduction or? Hope you can hear me.
Certainly.
Okay, so thank you very much, the EPO European Patent Office, and also the organizers for inviting me to this session. I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion, especially the topics of mobility and mechatronics. I think the way the industry is transforming, and also a lot of new ways of delivering the services they are getting into, including the mobility as a service, and also bringing in electric vehicles into the gamut. I think a lot of opportunity here for innovation, and also this type of session will encourage people to innovate, and also more than that, I think collaborate, co-create also. So very excited to be here in this forum. As I was introduced, so I'm the CTO for Hitachi ABB Power Grids India, and looking forward to interesting discussion with the panelists. Thank you.
Faiz, please, your introduction.
Hi, everyone. My name is Faiz Wahid. I am basically a regional leader for Sagacious in Europe, based in the Netherlands. And Sagacious, is an intellectual property research focused company. We have been publishing a lot of work around, green technologies at a global level, and recently also deep dived into the automotive sector. So it's a 300 people company, largely based in India, China, and US. And I'm here basically to present sort of the state of the filing in India, particularly overall patents, as well as the automotive sector, and particularly what is happening in the green tech space in the auto sector. I think with this kind of insights, it might be useful to hold on to certain data points across the state, and then deliberate on the next steps with respect to the Indian SMEs and how they could leverage on the current situation and grow. So happy to be part of this panel. Thank you, EPO, EBTC, and India SME Forum, and I look forward to contribute.
Thank you, Faiz. So now I would like to pass the to Jed and Francesco to introduce the EPO. Over to you, Jed.
So thank you very much. Over to you, Francesco.
Thank you, Jed. Thank you all. Welcome, and thanks for the invitation. I'm Francesco Zacca. I'm Principal Director for Operations in Mobility and Mechatronics, which is one of the three technical sectors of the European Patent Office. I'm in charge of around 1,500 colleagues, examiners, and administrative staff working in the area of mobility. All the vehicle technology is with us. Of course, we collaborate with all the other areas of the office in the area of mobility for electricity generation and for other parts of the technologies. I will give a very short introduction now about the EPO, what we do, what we are. And please, Jed, can I have the next slide? Yes. So, okay, I'm actually based in The Hague. We have colleagues based in Munich, our two main locations. This is our brand new building, inaugurated one and a half years ago. Next slide, thank you. So our mission, the mission of the European Patent Office is to support innovation, competitiveness, and economic growth of European society and of the world society in general. Of course, through granting high quality patents. Our vision, next slide, is for a safer, smarter, and more sustainable world, thanks to innovation. We have huge challenges, huge environmental challenges, and the only way to meet the challenge without decreasing the level of well-being and wealth in the world is through technological innovation. If you go to the next slide, please, we are committed to excellence. This is our slogan. The public deserves not less than this. We will foster our relations with trust, fairness, mutual respect, and collaboration. For this, we have developed a strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan, and we are more or less halfway through this strategic plan. We have 5 goals in our strategic plan. Without going into the details, the first goal is about the people, have committed and engaged people. The second goal is about our IT systems. We are in the middle of renewing our IT systems, and the COVID emergency has given an incredible boost. We are now able to work 100% remotely. Our business has had very marginal impact from the whole COVID emergency, thanks to super people and super tools. Our goal 3 is about becoming efficient and delivering quality and timeliness in our core business. So high value search technologies, search reports, and examination procedure. Our goal 4 is about collaboration at all levels, European and international, and this is an example of our collaboration activities. JED is working full-time in these activities. And our 5th goal is about sustainability. Sustainability both in terms of the environment. This conference is relevant because we are talking about mobility, which is one of the sources today of greenhouse gas emissions, but sustainability also in terms of finance and future. So becoming more efficient, having our finances in order. The European Patent Office is a self-funding organization, as I will show you now. Yes, next slide, thank you. So in total, we have an area serving an area of 700 million inhabitants, which normally is a very high number, but today I'm talking into the Indian public, and this is a small number for a country like India. We need 38 member states to come up to this number, which is lower than the single number for India. Anyway, we have 38 full member states, we have some extension states and validation states. So our market reach is very important. We are the largest regional or patent organization in the world. The next slide, thank you, Jet. So at a glance, I talked about our mission, our locations. Munich is the headquarters. The Hague is the second largest. Then we have a smaller office in Berlin and representative offices in Brussels and Vienna. We are the second largest intergovernmental institution in Europe after the European Commission. We are self-financed. We do not ask money to our member states or to the governments of our member states. Actually, we send money through the renewal fees. And we have a budget of 2.5 billion euros without any public funding. As I said, around 7,000 employees, of whom 5,000 are busy with the core business of granting patents, and 4,300 roughly examiners who were very qualified in all fields of technology. The subject of this conference was the future of mobility, and I put here a question mark. Actually, we don't need a question mark. You don't need to be a prophet or an oracle to know what the future of mobility is. The future of mobility is electric, no doubt about this. Unless you are in a region where there are ample own oil supplies, you don't need to import oil. Unless you are in a region where urban pollution is not a problem, I think the answer is very clear. The future of mobility is electric. And the whole workshop today will be about dealing with this. So how can the EPO support the future of mobility, support Europe, support India? As I said, we have something which is unique and which we put in support of the public, which is our collection of patent documents, which is a huge technical collection, and the knowledge of our 4,300 examiners. We have specialists in all fields of technology. Thanks to this strength, we can provide, for example, patent landscaping studies. You see here 2 examples which are relevant for mobility. Patents and self-driving vehicles has been published already in 2018. And this year we are publishing the study on batteries and electricity storage, which will be presented later today. So this is one concrete example of how the EPO can support innovation around the world. And then I pass now the word to Jed, who can give much more detail about this. Thank you, Jed.
So thank you very much, Francesco. And we're very honored to have you here today as the head of the mobility and mechatronics area in the EPO. And we're very honored as well, of course, to have many of your staff who are specialists in these areas and will be able to discuss in detail aspects of electric mobility and so on into the future. You've reminded me very much of the similarities between Europe and India, in that in Europe we have many different countries. The EPO has many member states. We have many languages and cultures across Europe as well. But of course, not forgetting, India has a huge population of 1.3 billion, but you also have many very distinct regions there as well, with different languages and different cultures. And as 2 of the biggest democracies in the world today, I think we have more similarities than not. We have a long-standing tradition of cooperation with India. In particular, over many years, we have cooperation with the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. We've conducted 6 Indo-European conferences in total on patents and patenting, and the last one of which was in Munich in November 2018. I'd like people to please mute their microphones if possible, because there's a lot of background noise coming in. So if you could all mute your microphones, please. As well as the Indo-European conferences, which have taken place in New Delhi and in Munich and in other places in India, we've conducted a lot of public seminars recently over the last few years in New Delhi, Chennai, Pune, and Bengaluru. Of course, that's not been possible in 2020 with the COVID situation. In that way, we've transferred our activities wholly to online seminars with EBTC. And in 2020, we conducted a total of 10 e-seminars across India with EBTC and with other partners like CSIR and the National Research and Development Council, ICRISAT, and others. And we're very honored as well to have the Indian IP Forum here today to help us support those activities. You'll see here a picture of one of the workshops that we've done in roving seminars, Pune, in fact, in 2019. And you'll see here a lot of very young, very bright, very ambitious Indian entrepreneurs that are setting up businesses, but also using IP to support their business strategies. And we very much hope to be able to support such people into the future as these young people use their skills and create businesses within India, not simply waiting for multinationals and big Indian multinational companies to create jobs, to create their own jobs and to benefit from the new possibilities that are coming through the digital revolutions. We're well aware of the growth rate of many Asian countries, and India in particular. We see here a picture of how the major economies in the world have developed from 1992 to 2008 and to 2024. We are expecting already in 2024, according to predictions from the World Bank and the IMF, for India to overtake Japan and become the world's 3rd largest country economy, very similar then in size and activity to the European Union as a whole. And with a 7% growth rate, many of the Asian states are growing very rapidly. Indonesia here is also in 5th place, And of course, China is expected to overtake the US and become the world's largest economy. So we, again, for this reason, see India as a very, very important strategic partner into the future. The European Patent Office, of course, grants European patents, which then may be validated in 38 member states, 2 extension states, and 4 validation states around the world. However, you see by this picture that the European Patent Office is a very, very international organization. Approximately half of our patent applications come from the EPO states, and just over half come from non-EPO states, dominated by the US, and then Japan, China, Korea, and then many other countries. The number of applications coming in from India is around 700 per year and has in fact doubled over the last 10 years. And we expect that growth rate to continue then into the future. And looking at our main applicants, we see now in 2019 that Huawei was the top of the list from China, then followed by Samsung and LG from Korea. We have United Technologies from America, and then the first European company as Siemens in place number 5. Then Qualcomm, Ericsson, Royal Philips, Sony continues to show the rich picture there. But the message is that the European Patent Office is a very international organization, and over half of our applications come from non-member states. We're also the leading PCT authority. We conduct 30% of all of the international PCT searches and another 25% for PCT applications that then come into the European phase. So altogether, we cover nearly 60%. We deliver searches on nearly 60% of all of the PCT applications filed around the world. And altogether, we handle 63% of all of the international preliminary examinations, where people use this PCT Chapter 2 phase to hopefully come to a positive decision before filing at all of the different states around the world. And we deliver all of these international search reports within 3 months of receiving the application. Why in particular should you choose the EPO as your PCT authority? Well, we have a unique patent quality, which is recognized around the world, coming from our division of 3 patent examiners that look at every patent application that we receive. We have the quality procedures all the way through and a very close and tight quality management. We conduct 2 searches, one when we first receive the application and a so-called top-up search shortly before grant to make sure that we hadn't missed any prior art that was not available beforehand. And as you see here today as well, we have a very rich multilingual set of experts in every technical field. If you do file at your PCT application and have it searched by the EPO and examined by the EPO, then you will not pay a second search fee in the regional phase, which makes it much more cost effective. Also, if you have the preliminary examination from the EPO, then you will get a 75% refund on the examination when you come into the economic phase. But the most important thing is that decision that you get after the PCT is the best possible support for your decisions to file around the world. And the very expensive stage in the patent application, in filing globally around the world, is translating the patent applications into Japanese, Chinese, etc., getting an agent each one of those countries and adapting the claims for each of those particular jurisdictions. So the further that you can get in the PCT phase, the more cost effective that will be. As a final slide, the European Patent Office also collates the patent documentation from around the world. We have a free of charge, readily available Espasnet interface, database available over the internet. It has over 120 million patent documents from around the world. And we also have the Patent Translate, which translates between English and 31 other languages, including Chinese, Japanese, Korea, and Russian. India is the 6th largest user of Espasnet and the largest user of our Patent Translate facilities. The only major collection that we're missing, in fact, in Espasnet is the Indian patent collection, and we hope to have that and be able to add that over the next few years. And not only can you search the prior art using Espasnet, but these databases also serve as the basis for all of the landscaping studies that were done, such as the ones that Francesco showed you earlier on batteries and also on mobility. And again, if we have the Indian documentation included in that, then we're able to landscape and show the developments of technologies around the world. So thank you very, very much for this opportunity once again. That's a very, very short overview of the EPO. If you have questions, then please put them into the chat and we'll answer them later. And back to Ankita for the rest of the presentations today. Thank you very much.
I will take the word now for a moment. Just a short introduction. My name is Ricardo Oltra. I am team manager in agricultural machinery in The Hague for the EPO for many years. I have quite a lot of experience in this field. But today I'm not here to talk about agriculture and smart agriculture, which is my field, but just to give you some insights in mobility from some of our experts. As Mr. Zaka and Mr. Owens just presented to us, the EPO has highly skilled professionals in all fields of technology, really some of the top minds of Europe. And today we have with us some of them that would like to share with you some of their expertise and knowledge. So first of all, a warm welcome to Gerrit Huber. He's team manager in Team Electrochemistry. He has a lot of knowledge about batteries. Gerrit, maybe you can give a word about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Ricardo. As you just said, I'm responsible as a team manager at the EPO, leading a team dealing with batteries and fuel cells. And my educational background is material science. Thanks.
Very good. So we're going to try to share with you some of the news on our latest study on batteries, and Gerrit has a lot of knowledge about that. So Gerrit, please, our participants coming from the automotive field are probably very interested to hear about everything about this study, the EPO IEA study on innovation, batteries and electricity storage. This is a topic which is truly relevant to the Green Global Agenda and all the green goals for 2030. Can you tell us what is the purpose of this study?
Thanks, Ricardo. Indeed, the purpose of this study is to report on the global boom that we are observing in the patenting of energy storage technology. In particular, we wanted to explore actual trends in batteries because the focus in the study was on electricity storage. Patent applications in this field are in fact exploding. We do see a 14% average growth for international patent families in energy storage since 2005, 4 times faster than the average of all other international patents. And the growth needs to continue. The Sustainable Development Scenario of the International Energy Agency foresees a need to grow annual additions of battery and other storage capacities from 200 gigawatt hours today to 10,000 gigawatt hours by 2040. This is a factor of 50, which is needed to mitigate climate change.
Very interesting. Coming from our sector, from M&M, Mobility and Mechatronics, and examining green technologies like wind turbines or other more traditional technologies like combustion engines, I think it is no surprise to hear about this global boom in patenting of batteries. So let us examine a bit more closely. What is exactly the scope of this study?
Well, you know, electricity storage technologies considered in the study were first electrochemical storage, thus mainly batteries, electrical storage like supercapacitors, mechanical storage such as flywheels, compressed air, hydropower, and thermal storage like cryogenic fluids for grid balancing. However, energy stored in the form of hydrogen did not form part of this study. Thus, The scope of the study is twofold. First, to examine electricity storage technologies in general, and second, to explore trends in batteries. They alone account for more than 80% of the total innovation in the field, and that proportion has been growing over time.
And what are the main trends identified in the study?
Two interesting trends in battery innovation are visible. The first trend, as may be expected, is that most of the innovation in battery chemistry is still focused on lithium-ion cells. The second trend is that half of the innovation in battery cells relates to engineering and manufacturing. This is clearly evidence of the maturity of the sector and its focus on efficient mass production.
And what about all the different applications that we can see?
You know, the data also enables us to identify the major trends and different types of applications. Three main fields of application drive the innovation in batteries: electronics, cars, and the grid. Indeed, we see that packs for automotive applications have superseded consumer electronics as the main driver of innovation. First, consumer electronics, like batteries for portable applications, have been leading. Then they have been superseded in 2011 by EVs, which are today the main engine of innovation in batteries. In the sustainable scenario of the International Energy Agency, if that's to materialize, then stationary applications are the next big wave coming, because the grid will be restructured.
Oh, these are very interesting trends indeed, Gerrit. But given the importance of the automotive industry in electric mobility, do we see any new kids in the block from this sector in the batteries? And what are the innovative trends from the different continents?
Well, indeed, Ricardo, we do see new battery supplier entrants. We see, for example, the rise of LG, Toyota, and Bosch, illustrating the rise of batteries for electric vehicles. Samsung, our #1 battery applicant, is more focused on consumer electronics, while Panasonic expanded from consumer electronics to also EVs, being one of Tesla's main battery suppliers, for example. The data confirms the overall domination of Asia, and in particular also Japan. Nippon accounts for 70% of our top applicants and 40% of all lithium-ion patenting since 2014. Together with Korea, Asia has 9 of the top 10 battery applicants. But there are also other players out there. Germany is the only country standing out in Europe due to the swift change to EVs, as illustrated by Bosch, and driven now these days also by VW and Daimler. Europe and the US have a higher proportion of small players, often in emerging fields like solid-state batteries. What about India? Exide, for example, being the biggest battery manufacturer from India, holds in total 55 mainly lead-acid battery patents. And India provides a battery mass production starting point, which might be quite interesting for future opportunities.
I find very interesting to see Japan so dominantly in the lead, Gerrit.
Yeah, Ricardo, Nippon has really massively reinforced its leadership during the past decade by riding the EV wave, driven by incumbent firms from the electronics sector like Panasonic, but also new entrants from the automotive industry such as Toyota. Korea and China are rising fast. China is most likely underrepresented in this study because we analyzed only the big international patent families. Thus, Chinese national applications and utility models have not been included. However, we know that, for example, NIO, together with CATL, is highly active in implementing new battery technologies into cars, like NMC 811, or now even solid-state batteries, as announced last week.
Mm-hmm. Very good. This is really a throughout insight in the main trends. But let's focus now on the future, Gerrit. What do you think is coming next?
The Ricardo, that's a tricky question. I will try to answer that by looking at 3 open points that emerge from the data. 1, which battery chemistry will come to dominate the battery market for electric vehicles and trucks? This study finds that there is significant activity bubbling up in new chemistries that potentially tackle energy density and lifetime issues. Lithium-ion and LCO cathodes are all enjoying a resurgence. In this technology and others like solid state and redox flow batteries, the landscape has many more universities and startups rather than big companies. This may be like where lithium-ion was 2 decades ago and shows that there is still healthy competition and no consolidation around a single answer for the future of EVs.
Mm-hmm. And what is then your second outlook?
The second open question goes like this. Will the dominance of Japan and Korea continue? And which countries are well placed to compete? There's a great deal of excitement about solid-state batteries offering certain performance improvements. When we look at these technologies, we see an even greater dominance of Japan and Korea than for all lithium-ion. This linkage between consumer electronics and electric transport applications is a good example of types of spillovers that patents can reveal and which can support comparative advantage. However, for other alternative formulations with less cobalt, such as NMC 811 or NCA, players in the US and China are currently leading, and there is much less certainty about future technological leadership. Tesla, for example, has been a pioneer of NCA. For lithium iron phosphate, the geographical spread is wide open. There are also likely to be advantages in innovations for countries whose firms help massively to scale up battery production, like Europe and particular Germany is doing it at present.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. And finally, now your last point.
Well, here comes the final third open question. What technology will meet the future needs for stationary applications, including very long duration storage over weeks or even longer? Here we found a risk that insufficient attention is being given to alternatives like redox flow batteries, mechanical and thermal storage. Yet these techniques might have a much bigger potential. One reason this question is important is because vehicle batteries are expected to dominate total installed batteries. They are already the largest market. As a result, they attract the most innovator attention. Once removed from the vehicle, cheap second-hand EV batteries are expected to find a new life in stationary applications that are less demanding. So the winning technology for EVs will influence the future solutions for the grid. This dynamic could stifle innovation in better adapted batteries for stationary applications, or leave us with a bigger challenge when stationary storage needs stretch to days and weeks towards the mid-century. Governments, major firms and investors alike may need to ask, how can the necessary investment in both R&D and scale-up be made in alternative storage technologies while lithium-ion remains so dominant in the battery market? One possible answer is hydrogen, which has received a lot of attention recently. And yeah, then a few words maybe about India in the next slide. I just want to provide you with a hint to a remarkably interesting publication from Stanford University, which was published in December last year. This paper reveals what it will take for India to become a major battery manufacturer with global impact. And with that, I just want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Gerrit, for this very comprehensive overview. It has been really a good insight for me, at least. I hope all the audience found it also very interesting. But we have also with us another expert today. His name is Michael Papatheophrastou, and he's the team manager in Team Defense and Footwear. I have had the pleasure to work with him for a long time already, and I have a lot of admiration for what he does and for his very professional style. And in footwear today, there is a lot of activity in additive manufacturing, what is also known as 3D printing, is part of additive manufacturing. Maybe Michal, you can give us a few words about yourself.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Ricardo. Good afternoon to all in India. I am Michael Papatheofrastou. I'm a mechanical engineer from Greece, and I have been working in the very exciting world of intellectual property for the last 23 years. I have been working in logistics, in conveyors, in defense, and in footwear. And every day I go to work, I'm excited to learn about technology, about what technology can do to better our lives. And thank you very much, Ricardo, for the question. You are absolutely right. Additive manufacturing, also generally known as 3D printing, is a revolutionary technology. It is essentially a computer-controlled manufacturing process in which material is added layer upon layer, starting from a digital representation of an object to be manufactured. This is starkly different from traditional manufacturing done by removing material from a block. It's used to create physical models, prototypes, patterns, tooling, and products in all different materials, in plastics, composites, metals, glass, ceramics, and even biomaterials. I'm very excited about this technology as it makes industrial manufacturing much more efficient with minimum material waste and closer to the end user, reducing carbon footprint. You know, both of these are major factors for the protection of our environment and having sustainability. Additive manufacturing changes entire industry value chains. I think the sky is the limit. I'll share my screen now to use some slides to continue. It is estimated that it will capture about 5% of the global manufacturing industry, around $12 trillion US. In patenting, there has been an exponential increase from 325 patents in 2000 to more than 4,000 in 2018. Additive manufacturing applications grew in this period at an average annual rate of 36%, which is 10 times faster than the average application growth rate of all other fields together. So, as you can see in the slide, new industrial applications of additive manufacturing technologies account for the largest share of patent applications in additive manufacturing so far, which is half of them, 50%. Other patent applications are related to machines and processes, 38%, innovation in materials, a quarter, and digital technologies. Now, almost 23% of additive manufacturing patent applications relate to two or more of these different technology sectors, showing evidently that we have many synergies here. It is very interesting indeed to see such a revolutionary technology through the lens of the patent landscape. It is evident that it's replacing traditional manufacturing.
I find personally very interesting to see how fast additive manufacturing is taking over traditional manufacturing applications. But as we are all here very passionate about mobility, I would like to know, how does additive manufacturing affect it? Who are and where are the major players located?
This is a very good question, Ricardo. Let us first see how the different sectors compare in the utilization of additive manufacturing technologies in the last years. So as we could expect, industrial applications of AM, that's how people call additive manufacturing sometimes, span a large variety of industries, the use of AM in the medical and health sectors has generated the largest number of patent applications since 2010, followed by the energy and transportation sectors. However, rapid growth of additive manufacturing applications is also observed in other areas, such as industrial tooling, electronics, construction, and consumer goods, and even in the food sector. Can you imagine having an additive manufacturing stake? Well, if we look specifically at transportation, it is rapidly developing with a tenfold in application growth in that period. In mobility, especially the current and future potential, meaning the companies which already use additive manufacturing and the companies considering in applying additive manufacturing, is quite high, especially so for aerospace, which has the highest potential of all sectors. Most importantly, the motor vehicle, which is about 20%, and aerospace, which is about 18%, and industrial and business machines, another 20%, contribute to the most to revenue in the additive manufacturing sector. They were the first to recognize the potential and make use of AM technologies, possibly because it was from the beginning easy to prototype new products. Now, energy, consumer products and electronics, medical and dental industries, and even academic institutions, government and military also utilize the multiple possibilities offered by additive manufacturing. Currently, the main industries exploiting additive manufacturing technology in transforming the way they work are to be found in Europe and the United States. European inventors and US inventors together accounted for 4 out of 5 additive manufacturing patent applications at the EPO between 2000 and 2018. Patent applications from both Europe and the US grew particularly fast from 2014 onwards. Within these 5 years, the number of patent applications filed increased by a staggering amount of 220% to almost 2,000 for European inventors and by 288% to more than 1,400 for US inventors. If you ask me for the third place, well, Japan is the third largest country here. However, its growth has stagnated somewhat in recent years. I would be extremely happy to see Indian inventors in this pie chart in the future. Now, as far as the main applicants are concerned, and looking at the transportation sector specifically, General Electric and United Technologies from the US take the top 2 spots there. After is Siemens from the first European major company that touches additive manufacturing en masse.
Wow, Michael, you have given us a lot of data about the sector, geographical distribution of the patent applications and how this grew through the years. So I think I can see now that this is really a truly booming technology. But I have one more question for you. What do you think is in stock for the future?
Well, Ricardo, this is a very meaningful and at the same time challenging question. Well, I'll give it a go. I think that as the technology will mature, it will force companies to rethink the manufacturing and distribution models and to adapt to new forms of competition. For mobility, car manufacturing and aerospace, one of the biggest benefits of using this technology is the increased ability to quickly and easily reiterate new designs. You know, no company gets everything right on the first try. Up to now, changing the design of a manufactured product involved new molds, new toolpaths, and most importantly, a lot of money. However, changing the design of an additively manufactured component simply requires revising a CAD file, resulting in very little wasted time and money. This, along with elimination of assembly costs, means that not only can companies manufacture superior products, but they can do so at really lower cost. The result will be smaller product cycles in the market and a higher value proposition to the consumers. Competition, if we look at it, I think will evolve around customization. I will give one example from my technical field, footwear, shoes. Every person is unique and has individual needs. Not to fit are the same, not even our own left and right, are they? Well, in the past, and even still now, custom-made shoes were extremely expensive, especially for sports competition shoes having polymeric soles. You know, you can imagine the specialist athlete that could afford these shoes would have to go to a specialist shop, get the fit measured, and then the sales assistant would send the measurements to the factory. There, firstly, a special mold would be designed and manufactured for the sole according to those measurements. Maybe yet in another factory, and would be transported in between those. And after that, a second stage would take place where the shoe sole would be made using that mold, and on top of that, the upper would be glued. This process would take weeks, if not months, at a very high cost of making the mold and then the shoe. Only few people could afford that. With additive manufacturing, you can go and everybody can go to the shop and get a scan of your feet. It takes a couple of minutes and generates data which are fed to a software and in turn generate a unique CAD file for the shoe sole and stored somewhere in the cloud. At the back of the shop or at the edge of the town, I can imagine a 3D printer uses the CAD file and directly prints layer upon layer the shoe sole, and when you have it so fast, then the upper is glued. Same evening, the custom shoe, this unique customized shoe is ready and delivered to you the next day at a fraction of present costs. Needless to say that for the companies, based on your data stored by the manufacturer, different designs could be proposed and shoes could be delivered to you uniquely made, custom for your feet with lightning speed. And that is only a mere example of what additive manufacturing could bring in the field of customization. Most meaningful applications are dental and body implants. For me, the future of additive manufacturing will depend only in human imagination and ability to innovate. The sky is the limit. Thank you very much, Ricardo. Thank you very much, everybody, for your attention.
Thank you, Michael. This was a really insightful look into additive manufacturing, which is part of the fourth industrial revolution. And now I can really see why this is a true revolution in manufacturing. By the way, to all our attendees and participants, I see already some questions appearing in the questions and answers tab. So I would like to invite everyone to submit their questions there. Our panelists will do their best to answer them. If possible, and if we have time, at the end, we may take some of them orally to share with all of you. But before we go to this, we have more to share with you. We have with us Mr. Faiz Wahoud from Sagacious, and I would like to pass the word to him to share with us the latest filing trends for Indian applicants. Mr. Faiz Wahoud, please, if you...
Yeah, thanks, Ricardo. I'll just share my screen and then start off. Just give me a minute. Let me know if it is visible. So thank you.
Visible. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I am going to share with you certain data around the filing trends of Indian companies. thank you for inviting us to be a part of this session. India, as you all know, has been seeing a change recently. There is a high growth, market. Technology developments are also part of that high growth market. We saw a national policy for IPR in 2016 that also pushed a lot of innovation, and there was a rejuvenation of the overall system in which the IP is handled. And across the small, medium, large, enterprises, there is a push to adopt, develop, and protect, technology as a means of becoming much more competitive as they innovate, not only for India but for the world. So, as part of this presentation, I'm going to share some insights around the filing trends of Indian companies. This presentation is best seen as probably a precursor to the following deliberation of the panel, which will go a little bit more deeper into the challenges and opportunities out there. However, before starting this session, let me also set the context so that we see the data points that we will see and understand and interpret them together in a better way. As I say, data doesn't lie. However, data is only as good as the source. And earlier in the presentation, we got to know about the EPO and its database of 120 million patents, and there are so many databases out there, and the analytics that you can draw is then linked to those databases as well. So it requires a little more information and context to interpret them properly, and hopefully I'll be able to share some of that while we share with the see the slides. And if you have some more questions on it, please feel free to add them so that we can pick up on them later on. Just one particular point that I would like to make is that mostly you will see data. I think in the other presentation also I saw that the data was restricted till 2018, and that's primarily because the last 2 years the data that is available is always not complete because of there is a delay in publications of filings and applications and stuff like that. So you will see certain data which you may feel like sitting in 2021, this is slightly delayed, but that's the general context in the IP space. So let me move on. So what I'm going to talk about is largely around patent filing trends in India. I'm also going to talk about automotive related patent filing trends in India and a little bit about outside. And also what's happening in the green tech space. We heard about 3D printing, additive manufacturing, and also about batteries. I think that you will also see some relevance in these slides as well with it. So what are the overall filing trends looking like? Just how do I remove this? Do you also see these bars on top, or it's okay? So overall in India, 1/3 of the patent applications that are now coming into the system are contributed by or by Indian entities. Almost 2/3 is contributed by foreign filers, you can say. We see that about 1 in 4 applications is coming from European companies, and we also see that the overall patent filing by Indian assignees has increased quite a bit over the last 5 years. In this study, it gives you a comparison of the 5-year periods of 2009 to 2013 and 2014 to 2018, and we see that the amount of filings being done by Indian entities has increased, whereas the filings coming from outside India haven't increased that much. So that it shows an increased intensity of filing that is happening in India. When you take a little deeper look, you also see that since probably until 2013, US was leading in terms of the patent filings in India, and since 2014, the Indian filings, which were initially smaller, now have surpassed and rising consistently. Europe has been a steady contributor over the last 5-year period, as well as in this 5-year period, with a slight increase. But Indian filings have really increased, which basically indicate that Indian companies are becoming more IP aware and investing more in filing and protecting their intellectual property. At least this view is in India. If you look at the top 10 filing companies in India, what you see is that almost all of them, 95% of them, 19 out of the top 20 assignees, top assignees are from outside India, with the exception of Tata Group, which is in this list. But you will see that the top assignees are, the top 20 assignees have a significant shift towards organizations which are based outside India. And another, just a diverse, probably a view of before moving into the auto sector perspective. If you look at the top 20 assignees in India who are from India, you see that there is about 4 or 5 of them who are from the automotive sector. But if you look at the top 20 assignees who are filing in India, you see that there is several of the major names in the automotive world are actually missing from this top 20. So this is just a picture that might put certain interpretation in context. Now, going ahead with the automotive filing trends in India, if you see automotive related patents that are filed by Indian assignees in India, they have more than doubled in the 10-year period of 2009 to 2018. For the same kind of patents, automotive related patents in India filed by European assignees, there was a peak in 2012, but there is a decline starting 2013. So this has to be interpreted rightly. Overall, there is an increasing trend, but the automotive sector is contributing. For example, if from Japan, if you see there is also a peak around 2013, and from the US also you see a later peak, but then the numbers are declining here. Overall, if you see, I mean, this is a picture that you get only when you look at who is filing in India. But when you look at where the patents are originating from, you see a different picture. You see that Indian patents, originating from India, which are automotive related, there is almost a 5 times increase in the 10-year period. And this is based on, the priority application. So there is a intensity of higher filing in India. So probably more R&D happening here. For automotive patents that are filed in India jurisdiction, you see almost, of the top 20, 4 are from India. You see 6 of them from Europe, almost 30%, and the rest are coming from other parts of the world. This basically indicates a very strong influence of automotive players, global automotive players in the Indian automotive IPR landscape. Indian assignees who are filing in European jurisdiction, they are filing there as well. particularly focused on climate change mitigation technology. Specific areas, if you look at engine pumps, turbines, those are the key areas where innovation is being filed. However, certain areas like materials, etc., are there is no significant presence in those areas. If you look at European assignees who are filing in India, the reverse, in the last 10 years, the focus has been also on climate change technologies. Particularly, you see there is a lot of focus around pollution control, exhaust apparatus, which you don't see in the Indian context, but you see that in the European context. And then you also see areas like materials and environment technology also being primary areas, which are not visible in the innovation that's happening from the Indian side, or Indian side going to Europe. When you look at automotive sector within the green technology, how is that happening? So during the period of 2014 to 2018, for the filings in India, Japan was the most prominent filer in the green tech space within the automotive domain. And Indian contributions have been nascent, small in the last 5-year period. Also in this 5-year period, there is a slight increase, but not much. But you see also contribution from Europe and US as well. When you look again from a point of origin perspective or a priority filing perspective, we see that between 2009 to 2018, there is a small typo here, please ignore that. Between this period, the top technologies or top filing were originating from US and Japan. But since 2017, we can see that US contribution has gone down, and European companies, along with Japan, are contributing more to this green space in the automobile domain. Finally, coming to what are the top automotive green tech areas, we can see batteries, like Gerrit was talking about, being the top one of the top classes in which patents are being filed. Plug-in electric vehicles, electromobility related innovations, those are also among the top areas in which innovation is happening in India for India. So that's sort of a welcome point in terms of probably India is focusing, Indian SMEs and organizations are focusing on the right future of mobility, as Gerrit shared. And overall, when I look at the story that is emerging out from this data, the overall intensity of patent filing in India has increased. We see also from our clients in India a lot of increase in the last 15 months on IP, and there are very strong targets being set for 2021. Just yesterday, we heard a news from Oppo announcing, almost that they will file almost 80 patents in the coming year, and so on. So Indian entities are also filing more, and they are protecting their IP in India and abroad. There is an increased awareness level that is seen. With respect to automotive related patents that are originating from India, the data shows that there is almost a 5-fold increase over the 10-year period, and this is probably going to continue. There is also a shift probably in terms of patents, because automotive is also seeing, aside from the battery technology and the electric vehicle, there is also a sharp influence on the automotive sector from you can say AV technology, audio video technologies, and IoT and those things. So there is a lot of innovation also happening on that side of the industry, which is affecting the automotive industry as well. So what we see here is that finally, when we talk about India and Europe, European contribution has been steady, and there are a lot of opportunities now emerging for joint collaborations as Indian companies become much more IP intense, which is liked by European companies. There would be joint opportunities and joint R&D and more IP originating out of India. However, when we look at green technology, particularly, the contribution share is small, nascent, slowly increasing, and this probably needs more specific focus and attention. Ricardo, I have covered most of these points that I wanted to share. If you have any specific questions, then I can take them now.
Thank you very much, Faith. This was really interesting, and it confirms actually that there is a growing activity in patenting in India, which is a very good news and a very good sign, I would say. Since we are running a bit short, I would like to go on, but first, because we have had some very interesting questions in the chat, some of them have been answered already, but maybe I would like to take one orally. This one was for Gerrit Huber. The question by Praveen Kulkami is, what is the action taken by the world bodies to have standards with interchangeability of many main components like batteries, motors, etc., for swapping, so that electronic waste generation is reduced? What is the IPR, extended producer responsibility, on battery disposal or other e-waste? I believe you have answered this in writing, but just to make it orally for everyone, Gerrit.
Sure. I have answered it from an IP side because I cannot really speak for the standardization side. What we do see is that there is also a big and growing IP application filing that we see in recycling themes around batteries. So there is a big, let's say, also a wave coming of companies dealing with exactly these questions. And so there is hope that there are also commercially available solutions towards this end.
Thank you, Gerrit. Very interesting. So we have decided in the meantime, because we see a lot of interest from the participants, and there are, as I say, many questions. We'll try to take them in the end, to extend a little bit the event by 10-15 minutes maybe, so that we can have time for all these questions. Again, thank you very much, Faith, for your insight. It has been really, really interesting. Please stay with us for possible questions that may pop up. But now I would like to continue with the event. We have another one of our experts, Mr. Andras Saipt, who is here present, also an expert in mobility, and will take now the word to moderate a panel discussion. Maybe, Andras, you can also give a word about yourself before starting.
Yes, thank you, Ricardo. Welcome everybody to this session. My name is Andras Saipt. I'm working for the European Patent Office for almost 20 years. My technological area is vehicles and general technology, more in detail, body structures and steering. Prior to join the office, I was working at the German Aerospace Center as a simulation engineer. For the ones who joined this session, not from the beginning on, I like to shortly introduce our panelists of today. Mr. Advitya Saxena, maybe if you can show yourself, please.
Hello. Hi, Andreas.
Yes, welcome. So he's for 17 years in the IP field, experienced in managing patent portfolios of high-tech companies. When we first met, he was leading the IP department of a really hot startup at the time, Aether. And right now he's coordinating the IP activities for a big multinational company, Schindler. My second guest today is Mr. Faiz Waid. We just see the presentation of this before. He's also 17 years already in intellectual property rights, responsible for branding services of sagacious IP in Europe. with focus on search services and IP analytics, which we just saw an excellent example for. And he's also specialized in valorization of patents. My third guest is Mr. Akilur Rahman.
Hello.
He introduced short himself in the beginning of the presentation. He's CTO of Hitachi ABB Power Grids, was active in various roles at ABB for over 30 years. Recently, as a CTO, his main focus is on Industry 4.0, Internet of Things, robotics, and electric mobility. Last but not least, Mr. Niraj Panchal, my fourth guest. He's 20 years experience bringing in as in-house and outside counsel, head of global IP services for the Asian African region for John Deere. And his main responsibilities are in invention harnessing and IP analytics. Welcome, gentlemen. The title of the panel today is Future of Mobility. We hear various buzzwords every day like autonomous, connected, electric, and shared. These are the main directions of development and future of mobility. We heard some nice presentations from my colleagues and Mr. Waid. And I'd just like to start with some questions around these presentations. My first one would be that we recently see different business models and technical solutions for electric cars. One direction is to decrease charging times. Another one mainstream direction is to exchange batteries in a comparable time as we fuel up our vehicles these days at the pump station. Yeah, so that leads to my first question. How do you see the future for this, also considering environmental and business model aspects? Maybe Aditya to start with.
Okay. From point of view that I have seen in my personal experience, I see a swappable technology that is going to be very troublesome for the customers as a ownership experience is considered. But if you say in long run, the swappable is the only answer we have. No one is going to pay for the dedicated batteries in each of the vehicles. And also it's going to be a nightmare for environment when you want to discard the vehicle or recycle the vehicle parts. So in long run, the battery technology would improve to a level where a very small package is required, and that package may be swapped very easily. That is not possible right now. But in the next 10 years, I would say swappable is the only place to go. There will be no other option.
Thank you. Faiz, maybe next.
Yeah, actually, Andras, India, if you see from a consumer perspective, has a slightly different perspective in terms of how electric vehicle adoption will unfold or is supposed to unfold. In the outside world, outside India, I mean saying outside India world, if you see the large adoption around EVs has been around passenger cars. Whereas in India, the adoption will be driven through through large-scale public transports, buses, of course passenger cars, but taxis, managed by Ubers and Olas and others, and two-wheelers and those kind of vehicles. And for those kind of technologies which have certain, determined or certain flow of and usage, swappable technology is a better option that is being pushed and being researched and worked upon in the Indian context. So I also agree with Aditya that there are certain demand-related challenges or consumer experience-related challenges. But swapping, the battery swapping approach is being looked upon as a better approach in the Indian scenario in terms of how it will be adopted, how EV will be adopted.
Right, thank you. Mr. Rahman?
Yeah, so I would say this this model will evolve because if you see, there are different options. Like today, we have like Hitachi ABB Power Grids. We have the technologies for fast charging of vehicles, cars, buses. Ultra fast charger, for example, in 8 minutes you can charge for 200 kilometers the car, which can run for 200 kilometers, and we also have flash charger. For example, in electric buses, we have buses which can actually stop near the bus stop, so they can be charged, top-up charged for 20 seconds. It's called flash charging. So there's a robotic arm which comes up and it touches the overhead charging point, and then during the time when the passengers get in and get out of the bus. This is just to ensure that the bus is not going back to the depot for charging. I mean, it can continue running, and it can also reduce the load, the battery load inside the bus. So that is basically to optimize the bus, the capacity of the bus, the charging, the running time, and at the same time you have the availability of the bus on the road. I think, and also the swappable option is another one. I would see that in future it is going to be a hybrid model where you have the swappable option. You look at, whether it's a city or town or area, you will have different options available for different vehicles, swappable, fast charger, ultra fast charger. For public mobility, it is also the flash charger I was talking about. And here, when it comes to I think the evolution of this electric vehicle will be also in specific area, and especially in India, would be also more from the public transport point of view. Taxis, four-wheelers, cars, and also the buses, for example. And the buses, they will be charged in a combination way, that you have the charging in the depot, overnight charging, then you have the terminal charging, basically where you have to charge maybe 10 minutes because that's a bus terminal where the bus is stopping for 10 minutes. And then you have the opportunity charging, we call it. In the stop, 20 second, 30 second, it gets charged. I think it's going to be a combination of all these. We are also talking about now the battery operated trains, where they also get charged, and so with this, the one aspect is basically providing a very efficient charging infrastructure to the passengers, to the users. But at the same time, if you look at the innovation side, suddenly we have this mobility which is connected to the grid, and grid which is supplying you the power to charge, flash charge or ultra fast charging, and so that creates huge amount of load, impulsive load on the electric grid, where it works in millisecond. So then you have a lot of opportunity. How do you do the optimization in real time? That you have the power available for all these flash charging, hundreds of cars or maybe buses, and at different location you have the flash ultra fast chargers. So how do you optimize that? So here comes actually I would say the multiplier of the innovation, because earlier we used to see that, okay, automotive company doing innovation in their area, grid doing their own area, but now you see the combination, how they have to come together. At the same time, we are looking at how we can store energy, the green energy, the renewable energy, and then that can be used to charge the vehicles. For example, in the depot, you have large amount of sheds where you have the the solar PV, and it stores the energy. It also uses to top up the charging. I think this creates a huge amount of opportunities for people to innovate, come up with real-time application optimization, and also the user experience, whether the user is the self, the driver of the bus or the taxi or the individual cars. And how do they get this experience? I think it's a convergence of different technologies. We are talking about electric grid technology, power flow technology, the charging, the battery technology, the user experience, and at the same time, you look at the demand and forecast of the energy generation, the consumption in the electric vehicle. I think it's a huge opportunity, I would say, and it is going to evolve and is going to be hybrid in future of all different technologies coming together. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Really interesting insight and interesting options. As you say, probably it will come down at the end the conflict of environmental aspects and user experience, user ownership. Thank you again. Panchal, your view on the same topic?
I think it's already being covered. I would not be saying something very different. The only one challenging aspect which I observe and a kind of concern everyone has is the infrastructure. So how that certainly that future is lying towards EVs. All the solutions considering the exorbitant, and nowadays it's hot topic of discussion in India that fuel prices are going up and up and up. So what is the solution? So definitely this is the solution. The only issue is the infrastructure, which will take time. I think currently I see political willingness, which seems to be forcing some of the companies to think. So there's a pressure on the Indian companies to think the alternatives. And I certainly see that alternatives coming into three ways. Certainly when you talk for the entire drive, which is electric drive for propulsion, and then what Mr. Rahman mentioned, the hybrid propulsion, which could be the solution starting with, and eventually you go completely electric. And there's a midway where you can also start at the component level. So slowly, gradually, you can have those components which are electrically charged. Since I represent an industry which is more into the agriculture side, where these vehicles are not only vehicles, but these are the traction devices. So you require more power, more horsepower, so to say. The question would be the compatibility and compactness of the battery. Swappable definitely is a solution, considering the affordability. I think there are a lot of efforts from the government side also in India, where government has floated a company which is working towards, getting the lithium, procuring it. So I agree. The only challenge I would, leave it for us to think that infrastructure and what we all can play a role there.
Yeah, that's probably a real challenge also, considering the size of India, yeah, and the distances and all the geographical intricacies involved in that question. You mentioned time horizons. We saw in the presentation of Faiz that at the moment there is around 16% of share of Indian companies of patent publications present. Where do you see India in 5 to 10 years? In what technical areas you expect the strongest expansion in IP rights? Maybe let's start with you, Panchal, for this round.
I see data, and I certainly see the evolvement along the sides of European patent practice, where AI, ML, and last time we talked about that, that's the area which is emerging. The current scenario, I'm seeing that a lot of tech companies and ag-tech companies are interested in the data analytics. So first of all, procuring the data. India, considering huge country in terms of types of data. So how do we gather that? And then data analytics certainly is an area which would be able to help you in providing the solutions. So I see a trend going there, apart from electrification, what we talked about. So these are few. I would not specifically highlight on AI ML here, but I see a potential in terms of maturing the system, how patent office would react. And when we talk about those inventions, those types of invention, that there's a sort of some level playing field, and somehow the technical effect is very well defined in those emerging technology areas. Certainly there are efforts, certainly those would be meeting the requirements of patentability, whether it's novelty, obviousness, and application. The only thing which remains there hanging is what is the way you judge the technical effect. So yeah, that's all I would say here.
Aditya, maybe next.
Yeah. So I would be more like more towards the designing aspect and the manufacturing of the battery and the subsystems. I have seen a lot of startups, a lot of engineers working in India on new concepts of drivetrain or the battery manufacturing techniques. And also there is a huge interest in the younger generation to create these automotive parts and designs. So I see a jump in those parts where they would be designing the subsystems and the components. That is also one thing that we can also take advantage of because of the lower design cost and the lot of potential with the younger generation. And there is a huge population among us who are engineers and who are ready to start up new things, new ideas. Right, like what you said about the data. Data is that's a parallel path everyone is taking. So every time there is a electric vehicle or a smart vehicle or a smart device that someone designs, there is the data coming out of that, and there will be 10 more patents just to analyze the data. So that is the effect of the part. But I would say more of the core designing of the components would come to India, and that's where we are going to file more in next 5 years. And that is actually what I see happening in some of the startups, right? You have shown, Vahid has shown about the company High-Tech Robotics. I was working with them also, and till 2017 I was with them. And at that time they were having a very low portfolio in European market. And it was me who suggested them that they have to increase the filing because they were creating something very novel hardware apart from the softwares, right? And I see their name. That's very good news for me that they have a higher filing in Europe now. So I would say hardware, components, subcomponents would be a good way to go, and that's what's going to happen.
Thank you. Faiz, as data analyst on that one.
You're asking me to take side of Neeraj, but actually I was going to do that because I also feel that it arises from a different learning I had from a different sector. So one of the case studies we worked on with another company, particularly on how the business model innovation happened in the aerospace engine manufacturing space. In late 80s, I think there was a shift from selling engines to selling propulsion as a business as a commodity to airlines. And we did a study with one of the experts in aerospace on what kind of, what can we learn from patent information, and does it show this kind of shift in the business model. And one very interesting fact that came out was for a company, Rolls-Royce, there was a different way in which they started aligning with their own suppliers because of the changes in the business model. Like Mr. Rahman said about how the business models will evolve and different things will come together into play. There will be realignment in terms of the value chain itself. So nobody who is in the automobile sector as of today will remain the way it is, and they will have to realign with different partners in terms of innovation as well, and that will lead to a different set of outcomes. And what we saw in the Rolls-Royce case was that their filings around data increased more than other players in the field during that period of, that decadal period of 1990 to 2000, because they were collecting much more data around maintenance. They were collecting much more data around defects and stuff. So, the value chain, which was like airlines and engine manufacturers and suppliers and maintenance hubs, that went away, and Rolls-Royce was actually selling propulsion to the companies, and so they needed access to data so that they can design better engines and so that they can deliver higher value for the money that they're getting. And probably that will also happen in this case, because when we see swapping coming into place, swapping, setting up swapping centers will not be a job of a local, smaller company. There will be larger investments being made by larger companies, and they will then need that kind of data access also, so that they can define better swapping times and stuff like that. So, I do see that data analytics, and now with the influence of IoT and other things on the automobile sector as such, because a car probably is going to become like a componentized thing. You'll pull pipe. We also saw from Gerrit and Mikhail that additive manufacturing and how components can be manufactured. So that will happen, and then you can probably manufacture your own car or your own vehicle or your own EV. And in that context, data becomes very critical. So I do think, but I don't think from an IP perspective that will see a big increase in the next 5 years. Like you said, probably for the next 5 years, I will go with Aditya's thought process that it will be more around smaller components and localized ingenuity to more application specific development of electric vehicles and stuff like that.
Thank you, Faiz. Mr. Arman?
Yeah, I see a tremendous potential in infrastructure and end user application, innovation in that area, especially in India. Potential is there, but whether it will happen, that depends on. I think I'm positive that there are a lot of startups, a lot of companies are looking for this kind of opportunities. Infrastructure, because you need to connect all these different domains. So it will be cross-domain, like the mobility, the electric grid, the entire value chain, the business model innovation, and also the way it has to be operated, because that's also changing. It's not the conventional way that, okay, there will be a transport utility which will be managing. It will be maybe an entirely different utility which will manage all this, and they will also be responsible for the energy. Energy efficiency, energy footprint, the carbon footprint. I think that creates a sort of a need for innovating, cross-domain innovation, mobility, grid, green, carbon footprint, and at the same time, end user experience. The end user could be, the bus driver, the bus operator, or it could be also a taxi driver, or maybe individual private car owners and drivers. And so that will also be based on how you use the data. I mean, you will have a lot of data available, so IT, OT convergence, and then you get the data, and then you will have on one hand predefined algorithms, sort of opportunity for patents. Then you also have algorithms to generate algorithms. They're basically the machine learning. So basically, you put these algorithms which will take the online data, learn from the system, a very dynamic system, taking the data from all these different aspects, from the vehicle, from the grid, from the weather, from the storage, and then it will generate algorithm on the run online, and then it will make the system more efficient. So that way you see whole lot of combinations of domains, whole lot of combination of applications, and then it will be really a multiplier for innovation potential.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, all of you. approaching the second half of this panel, I like to challenge you and the audience a bit and unharness your fantasies. So I like to ask as the next question, how do you see the future of mobility in the agricultural domain, considering technological advancements and environmental aspects? In other words, how the agricultural space will look like in 20 years. Yeah. So we start with those who are not directly in the field. And then at the end, I like to ask Panchal for a feedback as an expert on this one. So maybe Mr. Rahman to start with.
Yeah. So basically, sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
Question for, okay. So it's an interesting area, agriculture and also the mobility and transport there. I mean, I would start with one example we already have as ABB also. We call it solar pump, for example. You know, in India, a lot of agriculture areas, the villages, they have pumps to draw the water or move the water from one canal to the other canal. And then they used to have electricity, but the availability of electricity is always a challenge. But today we have come up with solar pump by which they can efficiently use the solar energy to pump the water. But when it comes to the agriculture area where you have to transport the foodstuff, the grains, the paddy and all, I think that also will be opportunity for using the electric vehicles in that area, which can be charged with the solar renewable energy, which can also have the storage, for example, microgrid, it can be created. And so with the microgrid, with the storage, with the electric vehicles, I think this is going to be really transformational. I would say that it is also a low-hanging fruit for future. I mean, you don't depend on the grid entirely, but you can have your own, and also you can bring in different type of generation and store the energy like biomass energy and also other form of energy, wind. Yeah.
Right, thank you. Aditya? We don't have your microphone on.
So I was saying that I have very low-level idea of agricultural equipments, but I would go for more like fourth generation industrialization, about more use of robots, and based on the scenario that these robots would be like self-sufficient, and that would be the idea where agriculture would go, rather than having these pumps or different smaller components. That is just the imagination that I have. It may not be very much worthy to the Indian conditions, but I would say agricultural equipments would go towards robotics and they would be self-sufficient, rather than we providing them with the infrastructure or the charging points. There would be a renewable energy source somewhere, and they would be self-sufficient, sustainable model that would be used. Again, that is more of an imagination, not exact.
If you try to think around autonomous and shared, is that
right? Right, in the same direction. So autonomous vehicles that can charge themselves using renewable energy, and basically a whole infrastructure that can work together without any human intervention. That would make more of an independent system rather than a system dependent on a fuel or a human grid power, something like that. That would be a sustainable model for India.
Mm-hmm. And especially India, probably nobody can afford an expensive machine. Is something like shared machines an idea for the future?
So exactly, if you, I have seen some of the shared machines in India at present also, and normally the farmer who produces or who owns the fields never owns the vehicles. They always keep it as a shared resource. So that is the possibility that big giants can come up with a solution, an autonomous solution, and then they can share or do a time sharing with the farmers. That is a possibility. But again, I would say that infrastructure at rural points, at every point in India, it's very difficult to maintain. So there should be a source that is nearby to the fields, a source of energy.
All right, thank you. Faiz?
I have not directly worked in the space of agriculture, but probably in some adjacencies. So we have done some research work around, improving livelihoods of farmers and stuff like from the government side and all. And there are some challenges that we note overall in the current, system. One, there is a huge focus in India from the government side to help improve the income of the farmers. Because the farm produce that they actually are able to make from farmers from the farms, there is a certain you can say imbalance in the way they get paid for it. Plus at the same time, the kind of information that they have about the soil, about the crop, about the market rates, and there is a lot of imbalance in the entire system. And with what they call smart farming and digital agriculture, a lot of these things can be solved. I see probably mobility playing a role within that overall digital agricultural shift that needs to happen. There is another big challenge in India where you have most of the rural, you have a rural to urban migration. You don't have labor available in farms to work on it. And so you need smart, equipment to assist, the decreasing labor force that is there. So I have seen some startups who are manufacturing, farm implements and doing a good, sale in India, because most of the land ownership, if you see in India, is around 4 acre, 5 acre acreage, probably is about 44,000 square feet. I don't know how it would translate into meters, but it's about 4 or 5 acres of land, So these are really small farms, not, there are, of course, the big ones who are who are producing on huge farmlands, but almost, if I remember correctly, almost 60% ownership, and probably Neeraj is the person to probably correct me here. Almost 60% or majority of the ownership is of small pieces of land, small parcels of land, where the farmer is working on it. So definitely, I think digital support and drones, for example, have a huge application in that space, especially for monitoring weather changes and water requirements and stuff like that. So there is a huge opportunity in modernizing agriculture and smart equipments, smart even mobility, because a lot of things you need to walk and do stuff. You have to move from one place to another. So mobility, equipment, devices, vehicles definitely play an important role and will play an increasingly important role in the execution of, I think, agriculture or modernization of agriculture in India.
Okay, thank you, Faiz. So what's reality? Which direction you go, Pansha, at John Deere?
Reality for 20 years. Very difficult one to say, but what trend I am seeing, and personally I believe, I think what you all have said, it all makes sense, and actually I see the trend also in the same direction when we talk about agribots. So not robots, but agribots are there, which are basically robots, but helping in some of the agricultural activities. Mechanization was one thing which is how it all started. Now it's moving up across the globe. India is still in its early stage, I would say. Next 20 years would be different for sure. First of all, as what was mentioned earlier about increasing the farmer's income. So it's not increasing the farming income, but farmers' income, so that farmers can earn more. Their earning capabilities goes up, and double was the precise promise by 2022 in India. So what all can be done, how the yield can be increased, how they, with their investment, the returns are increasing, and technology is the solution. So I see communication is one technology area which has to be improvised, and there's a trend. As you know, agriculture is heavily dependent on the climate. So how do we have better predictability? So more preciseness in that would help. So I see a very good direction from the weather company, which is part of, I think, IBM, doing a lot of stuff. Again, it is data. So you gather the data, you mention about what is the soil quality, fertility, and moisture, all those things. And you provide the information to the farmer that this is the right time, this is not the right time. And labor. So it was labor intensive. Now from labor intensive to getting towards smart farming. So that smart farming is again, when we talk about the embedded softwares. So those embedded components with the hardware would be able to also help the farmers in increasing the farming income. So future is combining the technology. And I also see other forms of farming where hydroponics, their vertical farming. I think Europe is leading in some of those areas where you may not require the land, but you require something else to do the farming or doing agriculture. So technology in 20 years, what shape it will take, there's a lot of intervention from the government and regulatory affairs, which will definitely help in defining how it does. Mobility would be a key player for sure.
Right, thank you. We running out of time, so maybe just a short last question. That would be about your vision on vertical mobility, elevators, escalators, and so on. Especially main challenges when you consider the recent COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah, so let's start with Faiz on that.
Yeah, I think by that you mean the lesser use of office space and leading to reduction in requirement for vertical mobility. Is that the question?
My question is rather how you can imagine an elevator or an escalator, what added functions, what kind of inventions in that area in 20 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think there are some fascinating designs that are out there of elevators moving, outside buildings, taking you to other buildings, and stuff like that. Autonomous vehicles. I think elevator is probably the most autonomous vehicle that we probably, or mechanical design elevator that we have been using. I think it has to become much more smarter in the way it operates. I live on a 13th floor building. At the 13th floor every day, moving up and down. I think there are. It could be much smarter. Probably for me to imagine is a bit out of. I have to step out of the current context to really think about it and come back and answer. Maybe I can take a shot at it. Probably the only job probably I have done.
If you try to think about the intricacies of COVID-19, is there something to do in that direction, in that area of mobility?
Not really. Probably the only value addition I've done in this last 2-3 minutes is give more time to my fellow panelists to think about answering this question. So
Okay.
probably I'll take it afterwards. Yeah. If anybody has a better way of responding, probably.
Maybe really short, Mr. Rahman or Panchal.
I can simply think of considering COVID-19 in mind that I carry my own elevator. So that is really fascinating to have so that I can maintain the social distancing, and it's only me and my family. So I don't know whether it is possible, but that is something I can immediately think of, where personalized elevators which are put in the car, and wherever I go, I just use that.
Wow, that's really futuristic. Thank you. Mr. Rahman.
Yeah, I mean, from demand point of view, I think because of the COVID-19, I think the mobility demand will be less, but still there is opportunity to have more energy efficient elevators. That's one thing, which is sort of a traditional, conventional subject. You always keep on improving the equipment and make it more and more energy efficient, but also regeneration. For example, use the power of elevator when it is let's say going down to generate electricity and store it, for example. Yeah, this is another area where it regenerates rather, and it stores the energy. And also third area is also to use the renewable energy as part of maybe a box. You can say the nano box, nano grid box, which is powering the elevator, which is using the elevator regeneration power, and also it uses the solar, the renewable power, and then it's part of the elevator. Yeah, that way we can make it more sustainable also.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. I saw that this area of the industry was really agile on reacting to the present situation and immediately started developments to solve intricacies around that problem. For example, going into the direction of touchless and automatic disinfection of these kind of devices used by a lot of people frequently. But Aditya, give us please an insight which direction the developments go.
Okay, this is just my personal view, so don't take it on the other side. What I say, I agree with all the panelists in combination. The first thing is energy efficient elevators. I think that is the first thing people would be longing for, or they would be designing elevators that would be much more energy efficient. And once that is done, more personalized elevators would be an option. Like right now, we have just 2 or 4 elevators per tower or per building. That may go up till 20 elevators that may be personalized elevators that you can use personally or using a technology, something like a smartphone or a personal car, something like that. But in long run, I would say a very smaller elevator that is much more energy efficient or self-sustainable, and that's how I see elevators after 20 years. We are not going to live again on the ground floor. That's not going to happen. So it would be vertical mobility, and it needs to be more personalized. That's what the social convention is. So I would say, but energy efficient is the primary thing that we need to solve. A better drive, right?
Thank you. We went quite over time, so thank you very much for coming to this panel. I give back the word to Ricardo to wrap up the session of today. Thank you again.
Thank you very much to Andras and to all the panelists. We had today an impressive group of panelists here, really very relevant. I really enjoyed the discussion. In particular, of course, because personally I am very interested. As I said in the beginning, I work in agriculture and in smart agriculture. I even used to work for John Deere in the past. So this touches very closely to my expertise. I would like to mention, to wrap up, that just for everyone to know, Europe is one of the global leaders, if not the global leader in mobility and innovation in all these kind of sectors. So we hope that you can consider us as an interesting partner for the future. We are here today, and as both Jed Owens and Francesco Sacca explained in the beginning, India is becoming one of the major global economies. It's really an interesting country from everyone, and we would be very happy to partner with India because we believe in India. We really have faith in your future. So with these words and with my thanks to everyone here, I pass the word to Ankita so that she can close the session. Ankita, please.
Thank you, Ricardo, and thanks to our wonderful panelists for bringing such a, I mean, you can say issues, challenges, everything, opportunities. We have discussed, I think, everything. And now there's a clear way forward. And so with this, I want to thank you, all of you once again, and a special thanks to our audience as well. And please stay tuned with us for more events like this. And you can give us your feedback. So we'll be providing the link for the feedback form. So you can provide your feedback and can tell us what kind of sessions you would like more in future.